What's going on, y'all? It's TCG here, back again with another episode of Deep Dive. It has been a while for the Deep Dive because we haven't had a new set come out or anything, but with the release of OP06 coming out in less than a month now, I figured it's time to start clapping on these leaders. The first one I want to talk about today is going to be Yamato, and before we jump into things, I do want to say I'm going to be changing up how Deep Dive's done a little bit. In the past, we've looked at like a shit ton of cards that could all be applicable for this leader for color reasons or typing reasons and things like that, and I feel that that just takes up too much of the video and makes it a little intimidating for people to want to watch, and instead I just want to show off the deck list and talk about them a little bit more in depth than we did before. Most of the time we would be talking about the cards that could go in these decks in depth. This time I want to talk about the decks themselves and the cards in them more. So yeah, to start things off, like I said, we're going to be looking at Yamato, and in the following weeks, we're going to be looking at a different leader each week. Some of the leaders we're not going to take a look at just because they're a little too specific, such as Moria and I think Red Purple Uta. Both are a little too archetypal specific for us to be able to do a deep dive on them. However, we could take a look at some of the other leaders, so be tuned in for the next couple weeks to check out some of those. But before we jump into this leader, I do want to shout out Dueling Guard. If you haven't heard of Dueling Guard, they are the best TCG accessory company on the market. They make anime-inspired TCG accessories such as deck boxes, binders, and playmats that will fit all of your trading card game needs, and their designs are absolutely beautiful. The quality of the product and the quality of the materials they use are the top tier you will find. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. And if you haven't checked out their newest collections, such as the 3 captains that features Luffy, Kid, and Law on it, it looks amazing, or their Berserk collection, their Yu Yu Hakusho binder, or their new solo leveling collection, definitely be sure to go check those out. I'll have a link to that down in the description below, as well as code GUMGUMTCG you can use for a discount at checkout. What? You haven't heard of Dueling Guard? Dueling Guard is the best TCG accessory company on the market. They have high quality deck boxes, binders, and playmats made for people who enjoy playing and collecting trading card games in style. They have tons of designs based off of fan favorite animes such as One Piece, Bleach, Full Metal Alchemist, and many more. They hit the ground running earlier this year, making high quality TCG accessories with beautiful designs that have sold out many times, so if you haven't picked up any of their products, make sure to do so before they sell out again. I have a few deck boxes and playmats from them already and can attest to how they don't cut any corners when it comes to quality, performance, and design. I highly recommend their products and use them every time I play cards. Be sure to check the description below for a link to their site and use code GUMGUMTCG for a discount at checkout. Alright, without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the Yamato leader. So if you don't know what this leader does, you've been sleeping under a rock. It is a crazy strong leader, and honestly I have quite a few gripes about this leader, but they're all just personal complaints. You know, I really don't think it's too big of a problem. We'll get more power crept leaders in the future. I think that this, for just being a little over a year after the game's release, is a little strong, but yeah. It is a green-yellow leader, 5,000 power, strike attribute, Land of Wano typing with 4 life. It says double attack. This leader does 2 damage. That's absolutely crazy in my opinion. Now, I know, if you have blockers on field, that doesn't really matter. If you can counter out, it doesn't really matter. But on the chances that you don't have the counter, or you don't have the blocker, or they have the thing to rest your blocker, this eats people up, man. I mean, 2 life on a lead, or 2 damage on a leader is crazy. I mean, we've seen it on cards before, and those cards have been good in certain situations, but they're just characters, right? They can get removed from the field. It's a lot harder to deal with when a leader has it, and it can be done every single turn, and the only way to stop it from doing that is with cards that stop that leader from attacking, or maybe keep it rested. And without those things, I mean, your deck is just very susceptible to getting hit for 2 damage every turn, unless you have the counters or the blockers on field. So this leader is very, very scary, and honestly, I think that they could have left it at that. This is going to be complaint number 1. They could have just left this leader as double attack leader. They didn't need to give it anything else. But, of course they did. It has another effect that is activate main once per turn. If your opponent has 3 or less life, which means if you were to hit them once with this leader, you can attach up to 2 Rested Dawn to one of your characters. So not only does this leader have double attack, but it also has 2 extra Dawn plays than most leaders do. Like, that's ridiculous. In my opinion, this leader did not need anything more than the double attack attacks, or even the other effect, or maybe a different effect, and it still would have been broken. The green-yellow color combo is really strong. Land of WANO leader is very strong typing. I just think that it really did not need to be double attack or have a second effect. Personal complaints, say what you want in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinions on this leader. I think that this is just a very insane level of power creep for being only a little over a year into the game. However, this leader is beatable. It is not the best leader in the game in this set or whatever, but I think if some black cards were to get hit, this deck would really go on a rampage. But enough talking about the leader. If you've never seen one of the deep dives, like I mentioned, we usually look at a whole bunch of cards that would go well with this leader, and then we look at a couple different deck lists. From now on, we're just going to be taking a look at deck lists, and typically I show off a competitive build, a budget build, which then we also feature in another series called Budget Builder on the next day, where we show off that build and we show off a game or two with it to see really what a budget build could do. And then I also show off a third list, which is more of a fun list, something a little goofy, something maybe to try out, just have a good time with, you know, maybe not win the most games, but still a good time. So for Yamato, there are 2 pretty popular builds going around for competitive wise. So I'm going to show off 2 competitive lists this video, followed by a budget list and a fun list. So let's go ahead and dive into the first competitive build. And I believe this is the one that a lot of people are starting to lean towards, and they're calling it this Fortress build. I guess just because you play Kid, like, and Dofi, you just play this defensive game until you can kill them and have this double attacking leader and they can't clear your board. Like, it's a fortress, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of dumb, but it's really effective and it works. So let's go ahead and take a look at the list here. Of course, we are on 4 copies of the 3-cost EZO, 2k counter, 3k power. On play, rest a 4 or less, Wano country typing, 4 more Whitebeard Pirates. Really, really strong cards. Been strong since OP01 and seen a lot of play in different green decks. This has a perfect home in this deck, being able to block, rest most blockers in the game and allow your leader to get in there for that double attack. Not only that, but it is a 2k as well. Just being able to defend yourself with something that also has application is always really solid. A lot of the time, some 2ks that you get to play in this game don't really do much else, and they're just 2ks, like their on play effects or whatever their effects they are aren't too great. So having access to one that can actually help you achieve your end goal by hitting your opponent, getting down to that 3 life threshold so that you can start using this effect and thoroughly beat them the rest of the game is very, very nice. Next, we are on 4 copies of Killer, blocker from OP01, 2-drop, 2k, 1000 power, blocker, Dawn ×1 on block. If you have 3 more characters, draw a card. Very, very powerful, just to be able to get a blocker on field to defend your kid, as well as draw a card when you need that block. So very good to play in here. You can play it off Kid, like I mentioned, and yeah, I mean, this card's always been solid choice. And of course, like I mentioned, we have the Kid. Kid's just always been a menace of a card. I've always said to have this card in your back pocket just because it is so powerful. Just being that magnet that your opponent cannot attack anything except this card, it can be devastating. So yeah, definitely want to max out copies of this in this list just because it's that 8k body. Dawn ×1 opponent's turn. If it's rested, your opponent cannot attack anything other than characters named Eustace Captain Kid. I think that's the wrong text, but it can only attack this Eustace Captain Kid. So, and then activate main, you can rest him and play a character with the cost of 3 or less from your hand. So you put that Dawn on him, you either swing or you rest him, and then you play something like your Killer blocker if you rest it and play it off of him, or you can just hard play this, stick a Dawn on that, have another character on board. You've got a blocker to help protect your kid, and you get a draw off of that. Very, very strong. Next, we're moving into Doflamingo, 10 cost, crazy card, 10k body, on play. A total of 3 of your opponent's rested characters or leaders do not become active during your next refresh phase. Like, absolutely broken card. Just gets to keep them rested, and they cannot. It makes it harder for them to be able to clear this kid or deal damage to you. Really, really strong. This is your some of your top end for this deck, and really what makes this that fortress build. Next, we're on 2 more copies of Baby 5. This card has no application other than being a searchable 2k because the effect is just not very good for this deck. Like, you really don't need it. Then next, of course, we're on 4 copies of Rosinante. This is just another really strong blocker that can protect your kid, being able to KO itself if they were to attack into the kid instead of this, or if this were to be popped, you can just let the Rosinante die instead. Very, very strong. Also searchable off of your Baby 5. I forgot to mention that about the Doflamingo as well. Baby 5 can search all 3 of these, and that's going to be our next 4 of in the deck. Being able to search these as well as our 0-cost counter event and our blocker Monet. Having application to be able to search half of your deck is really, really solid. And for the other searchability, we're also on Bonnie to be able to search the Supernova side of things, but we'll get there here in just a second. Baby 5 is just to search your Doflamingo stuff, get some 2K, some blocker, some top end, stuff like that. And then, of course, we're on the Monet, which this is such a sleeper card. A lot of people haven't tried this or played this in any deck yet. And being a 3-drop 1K blocker with 1,000 counter, and when you block with it, it rests one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 4 or less, being very, very strong, being able to rest your opponent's blockers on their turn, essentially. It makes them have to play the game a little differently. And then next we are on the new Beast of the Green cards. This card is absolutely insane, and I have prediction that this and Morio will be fighting for the most expensive card, or SR, to come out of OP06, being the only green card with Rush, and being able to rest 2 of any characters is absolutely broken. So 7 cost, 8K Hody Jones, Rush, rest up on play, rest up to a total of 2 of your opponent's characters and or Dawn, then put the top of your life card into your hand. So to rest any 2 characters, or Dawn, I mean, if you ever want to do that, but I mean, rest 2 characters. You can rest blockers, you can rest big bodies, you can rest whatever you want with this guy, just for the cost of 7 Dawn and taking a life. And then you also get Rush on this. And by the time you're dropping this, they're probably at 3 or less life, so you get to attach that 2 rest to him as well to make him a 10K swing on play. This is a game ender. This card is so unbelievably strong, and if you're a green fan, definitely recommend picking up 4 copies of this out of OP06. Very, very strong. Very, very much a game-winning card. Next, we're on 4 copies of Jewelry Bonnie, just to be able to search some of our Supernovas, such as Apu, Kid, Killer, as well as our Punk Gibson. Just making sure that we have some more consistent value adding up in our hand at all times. Very, very strong. And then, of course, like I mentioned, Apu, really just a searchable 2K. You don't ever really put this on the field, but having access to another searchable 2K is really strong. I would say maybe play more Baby 5s just so you can search them off of Baby 5, but this is a topping list. I believe this list won a flagship in Japan, and then we're going to show off another one that won like first place in a big championship series. So I didn't change the ratios of this or anything. This is just pulled off of the One Piece Top Decks website, and I always like to give deck lists like that so that you can see what competitive list is looking like from an actual topping winning player. Then next we are on another new menace for yellow, the Onami. 2 cost, 3K, power, 1,000 counter. On play, gives up to one of your leaders or characters banish for the turn. Giving this to your leader that has double attack, banish, is broken. Not only that, but it has a trigger to KO up to one of your opponent's 5 cost or lower characters out of life. So this like instantly replaces Thunderbolt in yellow decks, and becomes just a new card that you really have to pay attention and watch out for when playing against yellow, because they can just instantly make anything have banish, and that's very, very scary. Next, we are on 2 copies of Punk Gibson, just to be able to have some extra counter power for big attacks, defend our leader, defend our kid, stuff like that, and also get that free rest. The trigger's crazy, and it's also searchable off of Bonnie. We're also on 2 copies of Whoever Wins This War Becomes Justice. 0 cost event. You are playing a couple bodies and cards in here that do not have counter, so you want to be able to pitch them to be able to have that counter. And say if you don't need them early game or something like that, you can also search it off of Baby 5. Also has a trigger to rest a 4 or less. So not bad. Overall, like I said, this is kind of a defensive list. Kind of protect yourself, defend the castle, and then late game, swing big, swing hard. Hody Jones, win the game, right? Like, not much else to it. This leader is, I don't want to say brain dead, but pretty simple. You really just, like, play bodies that are annoying so that your opponent needs to deal with those. And then you just keep getting double attack swings in on them. Rest their blockers, defend yourself, swing for double attack every turn. Very, very strong, very, very annoying, and I do foresee this being a very, very high meta threat in our meta. Especially if we do get a ban list that hits some of the black cards, I feel like this will be very tough to beat. Now that we've taken a look at this, let's go ahead and take a look at another topping list real quick and talk about that in depth a little bit too. All right, and this is going to be our topping list that won that championship series. I'm pretty sure it was. They went 12-1 with this list and ended up first place. It's a Sky Island build, and I think that's rather interesting. A lot of yellow cards are really, really strong and have a lot of powerful application to them. And one of the new engines that we like to be playing for yellow is the Sky Island engine. Having searchers, bodies that play other bodies, a rush card that can be very hard to kill, 2Ks that play themselves, and a body that pops something. Like, very, very powerful. Also in combination with some new powerful events, I think that Sky Island is just very, very strong. So we already talked about the leader. In this deck, of course, we're also on 4 Ezo. You have to have that rest ability, being able to push through Black's field of blockers and stuff like that. Ezo is just a must-have for this deck, also being a 2K. And then, of course, we're on 4 Hody Jones, having that rush, having that resting ability. Very, very strong, and always want to play it in this list if you can. But to start things off for the Sky Island, we're on 2 copies of Rushanel. Now, I don't know how much I agree with this. However, this guy or girl, this person went 12-1 with this list at a big event. That's very impressive. So they were playing right. They were doing something right. And maybe that's playing this card. This card's very, very strong. And it's very hard to get rid of. It's very sticky. And your opponent might not see it coming. I'd say if you do have the 7 Dawn, most of the time you're going to play Hody over this. But who knows? You might play this instead. Then, of course, we're on 4 copies of Ohm, 4-drop, 5K, 1,000 counter. If you have 2 or less life, it gains 1,000 power. Like, it doesn't take you long to get to that with this leader. I mean, you're a 4 life leader. You take 2 hits, then you become 2 life, and this guy becomes a 6K body instead of a 5K, which is very powerful. On play, it looks at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveals a Holly, Holy, Dog, whatever you want to call him, Fuzzy Friend, and adds it to your hand. You put the rest on the bottom of the deck and then play a Holy from your hand. So gets you free advantage as long as you're able to see that Holy, and very, very strong for 4 Dawn. Next, we're on Gadatsu, 5-drop, 6K, 1,000 counter. On play, KOs a character with a cost equal or less to than their life. Just a great body to play on curve. If you're playing against a 5-life leader, especially, and you haven't been able to hit them, this can pop almost anything they have on the board by that time. Very powerful, searchable as well. Speaking of searchable, another searchable 2K in Satori, 5-drop, 5K, 2K counter. Trigger that has a trash card from your hand to play this. Very, very strong. Yeah, and of course we got the Searcher for the Sky Island archetype, being Shura, 2-drop, 2K, and 1,000 counter. Looking at the top 5 cards, taking Sky Island and adds it to your hand, puts the rest at the bottom of the deck, and then has a trigger to play itself. Very strong Searcher. And then, of course, we are on 4 of the best boy, the besto friendo, Dog, Holy. You got to play 4 of it. If you're playing 4 Ohm, you never want to whiff on this. You always want to see that double play. And yeah, 3-drop, 5K, 1,000 counter. Then, of course, we're on 4 copies of Onami. We're almost always going to see this in a deck list just because this card is so powerful. Being able to give your leader banish, it's almost unbeatable. And then another card that I feel like should be 4 ofs most of the time is Kikunojo. This card's seeing a lot of play in yellow decks in OP06 and moving forward after that because it's a 4-drop 6K body that on KO, if your opponent is at 3 or less life, you get to place the top card of your deck onto the top of your life. So it makes them not want to remove this from the field other than by bouncing it or bottom decking it. And not every deck has the ability to do that. It also has a trigger to play itself if your opponent's at 3 or less life. For free, you just get to play it. So if you do a successful hit with your leader at all during the game, this becomes live instantly. Unless you're playing against a leader that's healing and has gone past that 3 life. But if you've landed a successful hit and you trigger this out of life, you're able to play it. Next, we're going to see 2 also very powerful cards that come out of OP06, being the yellow Wano super rares in Hiyori and Momonosuke. Hiyori being a 2-drop 0 cost, or a 2-cost 0 power 2,000 counter that has the on-play ability to put the top or bottom card of your life pile into your hand, and then you get to add a card from your hand to the top of your life. So being able to take that top or bottom card, see if it's a good card or a good trigger, and then if it's not, you can place a good trigger there, such as a Shura, such as a Kikunojo, Onami, or maybe one of your event cards if you need to. This card's very, very powerful, has a lot of applications for every yellow deck, and I think that it will see play for a very long time, just being that strong, being able to stack that early and be so powerful. I love this card in Queen, and it pairs perfectly with Momonosuke, which is a 5-drop, 6,000 power blocker. And on play, you get to place up to one of your Wano type characters other than Momonosuke on the top or bottom of your life pile face up. Absolutely broken. So most of the time you will play Hiyori and then you will stack something and your Hiyori just stays on the field. So once you get to that turn, you can play Momonosuke and just place the Hiyori in your life pile, essentially getting to heal another life for free. Very, very strong combo there. Also being a 6k blocker, very strong. We love to see it. And then next we are on 4 copies of 2 million volt Amaru. 200 million volt Amaru. I'm sorry, I greatly underestimated how many volts that was. 2 cost event, main, up to one of your leaders or characters gains 3k power this turn. Then if your life is at 1 or less, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with cost of 4 or less. Broken card. This card's seeing so much play in yellow decks just because of how powerful that effect is. And the trigger. You may trash 2 cards from your hand to add a card from the top of your deck to the top of your life pile. Just being able to get another free life is crazy. I guess it's not free. You are pulling this out of your life. You are trashing 2 cards from your hand. But like I said, say you have this in your hand early game and you don't need it. You're going to use that Hiyori to stack this and then get a new life card. Absolutely broken and very, very powerful. Next, we have 3 copies of the new yellow 0 cost event, which is You're the One Who should disappear. It's a counter event that lets you trash a card from your hand to give your leader or character plus 3k power during that battle. But what we really like about this event is that it is searchable, and the trigger says that if you have 0 life cards, you put the top card of your deck onto your life pile, then trash a card from your hand. So if this is your last life card, your leader is Enel that trigger. Like you literally get the Enel leader effect for that trigger. It's very, very strong, very, very scary, especially for decks like Enel that are constantly putting that new life on their deck from their deck onto their life pile. But of course, it has great applications in other yellow decks such as this one. And yeah, I mean, the name of the game with this deck is just constant control and board presence with your Sky Island cards, being able to put a lot of pressure on early game, whittling down their life with your leader and some of these better 2-for-1s, bigger bodies, stuff like that. Also having some defense, some healing ability, some more offense in events like this, and then also in your 2 7-drop rush characters. Very, very powerful list, very, very powerful deck, and I could see why it went 12-1 at a big tournament like it did. But with that being said, how about we go ahead and look at something a little bit more budget, because right now the lists that we've been looking at are going to be pretty pricey. That first Fortress build is very expensive, with Eustace Kids closing in on $40 a copy, and then some of the new cards are going to be pretty pricey, like Hody Jones I estimate being a $10 to $20 super rare on release, if not more. So how about we take a look at something that's going to be a little bit more wallet friendly for you budget players that aren't wanting to break the bank to play a leader like this. And for our budget list, we are going to be looking at something a little goofy at the same time. Like I put this together and I think it's just funny. It's fun as well as being budget. Now, take my budget lists and kind of use them as a building block and maybe work your way into making them more competitive. Some cards I would recommend for improving this, of course, are going to be cards like Hody Jones, the new yellow super rares from OP06 in Hiyori and Momonosuke, as well as maybe your kids, your Dofis, stuff like that. Anything that you can fit in there that might be a little bit more competitive from those first 2 lists, I would recommend replacing some of these cards with that. But that being said, this budget list is a little bit of mix of Wano with a little bit of mix of Sky Island. Now, some of the Wano cards that we're playing are going to be uncommons, commons, and rares from the new set and older sets, as well as some supers from older sets. And then the rest of the cards are going to be Sky Island cards that are also all commons, uncommons, and rares. We're only on 2 super rares in this deck. It's very, very budget friendly. You should be able to pick up everything that isn't the super rares for $10. We're only on a couple of new cards, and on release and pre-release, of course, they're going to be a few dollars. But after the set's out and people have opened this product, most of the time your rares are going to be less than $1, and I try to budget rares in for at least 25 to 50 cents. So that means for your playset of new rares, you're going to be looking at $2 here. You're going to be looking at $2 here. You're going to be looking at $2 here. So that's a total of $6 for your rares. And then a lot of these other ones are a lot cheaper because they're from older sets. I think beiges are like $1 each. So that's $10. Satori's might be like 50 cents to $1 as well. That's 14. These are probably only like 25 cents, I think. I haven't looked TCG Player, but for rares, commons, and uncommons, I usually budget in for like 50 cents to 25 cents, and I try to keep these lists under $50 if possible. And this one, you should be able to get your hands on it, no problem, under $50. Your most expensive card you're going to be looking at is Yamato's, which are currently about $5, so that's going to be most of your budget, and $20 there. Your Odins are about $3 a piece right now as well, and you're only going to be looking at about $9 here, so about $30. And then I'd say the rest of the deck you should be able to pick up for around 20 or less, making this efficiently a $20 budget deck. Now, will I say this is the best deck in the world? No, budget lists typically aren't. However, I tried to put together something that's at least going to be a little bit more fun to pilot, fun to play, and a little bit competitive at certain points. I don't think it's amazing. However, we will check out some gameplay in the Budget Builders episode tomorrow. So if you're interested in seeing this list being played, definitely tune into that tomorrow. I'd love for you to check that out. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the deck list. So like I said, it's going to be a Sky Island engine. You're going to be playing Shura to try and find some of your Sky Island cards, such as your 2K counters, as well as your Ohm and Holy, just to be able to really put some pressure on your opponent, as well as your counter events in Elthor and your new main event in Reject, being able to help start dealing damage to your opponent if you can. At late game, this can help you end the game very quickly, being able to deal one damage to them and then hopefully close out the game with something like an Odin on field. Very, very powerful there. So looking at the list from a high end, like I said, we're on, I believe, 12 2Ks. We're trying to be very defensive with this list and play some bodies that can help us put some extra pressure on, like Kikunojo, Nekomamushi, Ohm into Holy, as well as maybe hitting a Shura or a Satori off of trigger. And then we're trying to get out our Kazuki Odin and then get down to 1 life so we can use Reject. And then the next turn we can defend ourselves, drop Yamato, and be healed up again. But yeah, let's go ahead and look at the list. So we're on 3 one-ofs, and this is probably really weird, and it's honestly not the greatest deck building, but I just wanted to do something funny and fun. And if you don't like this, you can definitely swap these cards out for something different. But we're on 3 cost less. I'm sorry. We are on 3 cost or less Wano characters to play off of Kazuki Odin. First one being Cat Viper, being able to pump this out and rest a 3 or less on play. Not amazing, but not terrible either. So just an option if you need it. Also, we're on Raizo in case you have a lot of bodies on field. This can help get you some extra advantage the next turn, being able to draw some cards. And then we are on the other Cat Viper, which you could pop out of the deck, and it is a blocker, a 4K blocker. So having options to play off of your Odin, say if you have one of these in your hand and you have another one you can still play from deck that has some extra utility, it's always good. And then of course we're on 3 copies of 8 cost Odin. If you don't know what this does, it's an 8K body that says activate main once per turn, pay 3 Dawn, and set this character as active. So you get 2 swings with this. It's really, really strong. And then on KO, it plays a Wano country type character card with a cost of 3 from your deck. So that's why we're on these 3 different copies. And I know it's probably bad deck building, and like I said, I just wanted to do something funny, something cheaper, and something good for you budget players to be able to have something at least kind of fun to play and look towards your end goal with this. What would I replace this with if I could? Probably Hody Jones. I'd pump in 4 copies of Hody Jones and then maybe another blocker, something like Rosinante, something like that. Next, we're on 4 copies of Beige, just being one of the best yellow 2Ks in the game, being able to stop one of your opponent's characters from attacking that turn. Very, very powerful. We're on 4 copies of Yamato, 9 cost, 9K body, being able to KO an opponent's character with the total cost equal to your and your opponent's life added up together. And then if you have 1 or less life, you get to heal 1. Insanely powerful card for yellow, and fits nicely in the Yamato deck. So like I said, you want to defend yourself until you get down to 1 life, heal, take that life, reject, and kill him. So that's the goal with this deck. Next, we're on 4 copies of Ohm, as well as 4 copies of Holy, so we'll skip over that when we get to it. 4 Satori, 4 Shura, and then we are on 4 Aiza. This is a 1 cost 0 power 2K that on play looks at a top card of your opponent's life and puts it at the top or bottom. Has more application than the other searchable 2K for the Sky Island archetype, and I just wanted to make sure that 2 of our 2Ks were searchable. Most of the time, you're just going to use this for a 2K, though. Next, we're on 4 copies of Anami again. This card's just great in here. 4 copies of Kikunojo, and then 2 copies of Nekomamushi. This being a 4-drop, 5k body with 1000 counter. Has the effect that Dawn ×2, this character can also attack your opponent's active characters. You can get that Dawn for free off of your leader effect if they're at 3 or less life. So this becomes insanely powerful and can help put extra aggression on some of your opponent's characters early game. And yeah, I really like this card because it also has the trigger to play itself if you're there at 3 or less life cards. We're also on 2 copies of El Thor, being a 1-cost counter event that's basically Yellow's Rad Beam. It gives 2000 power to your character or leader for this battle. Then if your opponent has 2 or less life, you give it an extra 2000. And then as a trigger to KO an opponent's character with a cost equal or less to their current life total. And then, of course, we are on 4 copies of Reject, being a new main event for the Sky Island type. It's also searchable, and it has the effect where you can KO up to one of your opponent's 5-cost or lower characters, or if your opponent has 1 life, deal 1 damage to them, then add the top card of your life to your hand. Also has a trigger to draw a card, really, really strong. This card's insane. You can help get your opponent down lower with if they're at 1 life, you can get them down to 0 life. So very powerful. Yeah, I like this card a lot, and it being searchable can help you put some extra pressure on at the end of the game. So this is going to be the budget list. If you want to see this in action, make sure to check out the video tomorrow, and we will play a couple games with it to show you what it can do and if it is somewhat competitive or not. If you have any suggestions, I'd love for you to post them down in the comments so some other budget players can maybe get some ideas of what they could start replacing for this. But like I said, my recommendations are going to be stuff like Hody Jones, the new yellow Wano Super Rares, Eustace Kid, Doflamingo, that kind of thing to help make this more competitive. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at the fun build now? Alrighty, and this is going to wrap it up for today. This is going to be the fun build, and this is going to be the pure Wano build. So this build is going to capitalize on Kazuki Momonosuke Searcher, being able to search almost every single card in the deck. And yeah, just putting pressure on with those fun Wano cards. I really like the Wano cards, and I think that they're cool. This might not be the best deck in the room either. This is just more of a fun, goofy list for you to try out with some of these extra Wano cards and have a good time with. So, of course, we got the Yamato leader. We're on 4 Izo again. We are on 4 copies of Momonosuke, which is a 1-drop searcher. Activate main, pay 1, rest it, and you get to add a Wano card from the top 5 cards of your deck. You get to add almost anything in the deck. There's only a couple targets that are not valid, being Onami as well as Beige, and you're the one who should disappear. So you can search virtually the whole rest of your deck. Next, we're on 2 copies of the 5-cost secret rare Yamato from OP01. 5 cost 5k, counter plus 1000. The leader's the card's name is also treated as Kazuki Odin. It has double attack and banish. So very, very scary card. If you put this on the field, it instantly applies pressure and needs to be removed or defended against. So this card can eat your opponent's hand up for dinner. It's crazy. And then not only that, but this being double attack and your leader being double attack, I mean, one of these hits is going to go through. It's one or the other. So it's really up to them. And then next we are on Odin again, and two different characters to play off of that Odin. One of them being a new one, being Dogstorm. It's not new, but new to these lists. We weren't playing it in the other one, but this one is a 3-cost 4k with 1000 counter, and it says if all your Dawn cards are rested, this character cannot leave the field due to your opponent's effects. Just a body that you can swing with. If all your Dawns rested, Sakazuki cannot remove this, so it's kind of annoying there. Moria could also not remove it either, so pretty cool. 2 copies of Odin again, and then we are also on that Cat Viper again. We're on 4 copies of Beige just to help with the trigger and also the 2k counter. Then again, we are on 4 copies of Yamato. Like I said, I love this card being a Queen player. I want to fit this card into any yellow deck I really can, just because I have that much love for it. It's such a great card, and I think that playing it in the Yamato deck just makes a lot of sense. Next, we're on 4 copies of Inurashi. It's a 4-drop 5k body with 1000 counter. Dawn ×2 when attacking. You may discard 1 card from your hand, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with the cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's current life cards. Now, that effect's not going to come up too often. However, it definitely can. It also has that good new yellow Wano trigger that if your opponent's at 3 or less life cards, you get to play it. So it's just another playable body off of life, and yeah, we love to see those cards. Next, we're on 4 copies of Onami. Got to play this card in this deck. I mean, it's just absolutely broken, and I really don't think there's a reason not to play it, you know. 4 copies of Kikunojo, just great body. 4 copies of Hiyori, 4 copies of Momonosuke, 4 Nekomamushi, and then 4 You're the One You Should Disappear. Like I said, the goal of this deck is really to be able to search everything with Momonosuke and just have fun with some of these Wano cards, some of the new ones, some of the old ones. Momonosuke being able to stack any of your Wano characters except for himself into life is very, very funny. You can always swing with one of these and then restack it so that they don't remove it again from the field. You get another life out of it, being able to play it again. Very funny deck. I've had some fun testing this version. I really think that 5-cost Yamato is super powerful. Putting this on the board, it just makes it need to be addressed, and in combination with your leader, one of these attacks is bound to go through. But anyway, that is going to be it for the deep dive today. It's still been a long video, but we did shave off a lot of time. Like I said, I wanted to talk more about the cards actually in the deck rather than cards that could possibly be in the deck. And if you like this new format of deep dive, let me know down in the comments below. I'd also love it if you subscribe and like the video. As long as you like this type of content, make sure to come back for some more. We'll have more deep dives the next few weeks, and we'll have budget builders the day after, showing off the budget list in a couple games. And yeah, it would really help me out a lot, and I really appreciate it if you like my content to subscribe. Make sure to go check out Dueling Guard in the description below and use code GumGumTCG for a discount at checkout. And I hope y'all have a great day. If y'all are excited for Yamato, let me know down below, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.